Hi, it's Ingrid once again with the Week 21 update of Ethan and Ingrid's 2024 Big Year. At the end of last week's exciting recap, we promised you puffins this week. And good to our word, we bring you puffins. Wednesday was the first day of the season for Hardy Boat Puffin Tours, and we motored out of scenic New Harbor, Maine, heading for Eastern Egg Rock, North America's southernmost nesting island for Atlantic puffins. Like many birds with distinct or colorful plumage, puffins' feathers were once prized as ornaments for ladies' hats. In addition, their eggs and the birds themselves were collected for food. Due to Eastern Egg Rock's close proximity to the mainland, only 6 miles, puffins on the island were overhunted, and by 1885, there were no more Atlantic puffins nesting anywhere on the island. Fast forward to 1973, when Stephen Kress of the National Audubon Society executed a plan to restore Atlantic puffin breeding to Eastern Egg Rock. First, his team transplanted young puffins from other breeding islands, feeding and releasing them. By late summer, the birds would disappear into the North Atlantic, where they would live at sea for 2 to 3 years before returning to an island to breed and nest. Then, through the use of puffin decoys, puffin recordings, and even mirrors, the matured puffins were coaxed back to Eastern Egg Rock. In 1981, the first pair returned to the island to nest. Thanks to the efforts of Stephen Kress and the hundreds of interns who have worked on Project Puffin ever since, there are now approximately 3,000 puffins on Maine's seabird islands. Wednesday was unseasonably warm for May in Maine and a good day to be out on the water. As Eastern Egg Rock is only about 30 minutes from the harbor, it wasn't long before we spotted our first of approximately 30 Atlantic puffins. One cannot look at a puffin and not smile. Its clown-like bill and tiny football-shaped body make it very entertaining to watch, whether darting through the air or bobbing atop the water. We also saw our first Arctic terns of the year, and a single Wilson's storm petrel flew by the boat on our way back to the mainland. Earlier in the week, we traveled an hour north to Belgrade, Maine, where each spring we stand on a rickety boat launch and peer out onto Messalonsky Lake and hope the black terns have returned. Unlike the 11 other species of terns that Ethan and I have seen so far in our big year, the black tern prefers fresh water to salt, and as its name suggests, this bird is primarily black during breeding season. Interestingly, in the fall, the black tern's head and chest becomes white as it migrates south to its winter home along the coasts of Central and South America. It isn't lost on Ethan or I that a big year is a tad silly. It's an unofficial contest with no awards, prize money, or recognition, short of being mentioned in Wikipedia should you have a particularly good year. But what if I told you it can get you out of jury duty? That's right. I was called for federal jury duty in Portland, and I had to report at the beginning of July and again at the beginning of August. Obviously, this would cause some real problems for a big year, as it would be hard to chase a 5-striped sparrow in Arizona while sitting on a grand jury 3,000 miles away. So I wrote a letter to the court official about our big year, including some of the nonsense found in these weekly updates, and she excused me, at least until March of next year. I guess we'll worry about that in January. Some keep the Sabbath going to church. I keep it staying at home, with a bobolink for a chorister and an orchard for a dome. This is a memorable stanza from an Emily Dickinson poem, and one that we remember when the bobolinks return to nearby Salt Bay Farm and its unmowed meadows. The bobolink is a ground nester, digging out a depression in the soil. This makes the bobolink vulnerable to haying, human foot traffic, and ground predators. As a result, its North American population has declined 56% since 1966. Ethan and I feel lucky to have this thriving bobolink colony so close to our home in mid-coast Maine. Another favorite at Salt Bay Farm is the Virginia rail, a secretive bird that nests in freshwater reeds and cattails. During the summer, if you listen carefully, you might hear a hysterical series of wheezy, pig-like grunts or high-pitched mechanical clicking. Occasionally, a rail will fly up into the air and then disappear just as quickly. Ethan got a rare view of a Virginia rail last week and was able to film it with his iPhone, a first for either of us. This coming week, our plans have us traveling to New Hampshire to find a bird that only nests above 3,000 feet. Later in the week, we will move on to North Carolina for some offshore birding. Please tap the subscribe button below to follow our big year on YouTube. Happy birding!